You can be surrounded by people you know well, sitting in the same room, laughing at familiar jokes, and still feel this quiet, uncomfortable sense of loneliness inside. Not the obvious kind of loneliness that comes from being alone, but a deeper one that's harder to explain. Because from the outside, everything looks fine. You have friends, you're included, you're not isolated, and that's exactly why this feeling can be so confusing. You start to wonder if something is wrong with you for feeling lonely in a situation where you shouldn't be. But this kind of loneliness has very little to do with how many people are around you. It has everything to do with how emotionally connected you feel while you're there. Psychologists distinguish between social loneliness and emotional loneliness. Social loneliness comes from a lack of contact. Emotional loneliness comes from a lack of depth. And emotional loneliness is often strongest when you're around people who know you but don't truly see you. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for emotional safety. In every interaction, it's asking a simple question. Am I safe to be myself here? Safe to speak honestly, to show uncertainty, to express thoughts that aren't polished or socially convenient? When the answer is no, even subtly, your nervous system shifts into a protective mode. You still talk, still smile, still participate, but you do it through a filter. You edit yourself. And the moment you start editing yourself, connection becomes shallow by default. Neuroscience helps explain why this feels so draining. When you feel understood, your parasympathetic nervous system activates, your body relaxes, your brain releases oxytocin, the hormone associated with trust and bonding. This is why deep conversations feel grounding rather than exhausting. But when you feel unseen, your nervous system stays slightly alert. Not enough to trigger anxiety, but enough to keep you guarded. Over time, being in that state around others creates emotional fatigue, which the mind experiences as loneliness. This is why laughter alone doesn't solve the problem. Shared activities don't automatically create connection. You can do everything right socially and still feel empty afterward if the interaction never reaches your internal level. Connection isn't about being present physically. It's about being present psychologically. And if you're someone who thinks deeply or processes emotions internally, surface-level interaction can feel especially isolating. Not because it's wrong, but because it doesn't match your depth. Another overlooked factor is the roles people fall into within friendships. Over time, many relationships stabilize around unspoken roles. The funny one, the dependable one, the listener, the calm one. Roles make social dynamics predictable, but they also limit authenticity. If you become the person who adapts, who listens more than they speak, who doesn't burden others with their inner world, your emotional needs may slowly disappear from the relationship. Not because others don't care, but because the system was never built to include them. Loneliness also tends to intensify during periods of personal change, when your values shift, when your interests deepen, when your inner world evolves faster than your social environment. The conversations around you stay the same, but you don't. And suddenly, familiar spaces start to feel misaligned. This doesn't mean your friends are wrong for you. It means parts of you have outgrown the emotional bandwidth of certain interactions. Modern life adds another layer to this. We now perform connection constantly. Group chats, reactions, shared content, surface-level engagement. These systems create the illusion of closeness without requiring vulnerability. You can stay socially active while remaining emotionally distant, even from people you care about. Over time, your brain learns to associate connection with performance rather than presence, which only deepens the sense of loneliness when real intimacy is missing. The solution isn't to cut people off or assume you need entirely new friends. And it's not about forcing vulnerability where it isn't safe. The real shift begins when you stop treating loneliness as a personal flaw and start seeing it as information. It's a signal that your inner world needs more accurate mirrors, that you need at least a few spaces where you don't have to translate yourself. This might mean being slightly more honest in small moments, sharing one real thought instead of the expected one, and seeing how it's received. It might mean accepting that not every relationship is meant to meet every emotional need. Some connections are for shared history, some are for laughter, some are for depth. Loneliness doesn't always mean you lack connection. Sometimes it means your connections no longer match who you're becoming. Feeling lonely around others doesn't mean you're broken. Often it means you're perceptive. You notice emotional gaps that others overlook. That sensitivity can hurt, but it's also what allows for real intimacy when the right conditions exist. You don't need more people. You don't need more noise. You need resonance. And one day you'll notice the difference. You'll be with someone maybe during a quiet conversation or a long walk, and the loneliness won't be there. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're not hiding. Your nervous system will relax, your thoughts won't feel edited, and you'll understand something important. Loneliness was never about being alone. It was about being unseen, and being truly seen, even by one person, changes everything.